Okay. Vaughn, stop telling me to delete my fork. No. Okay, hello. Welcome to the Porter Office Hours. Today we're going to be doing something super fun, which is we're going to make a Porter Mixin. A Mixin, you say? What the heck is that? I don't know either, but we're going to figure it out. So I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to figure out together what's Porter, what's a Mixin, and maybe what's CowsA, because I know Jeremy really likes it, but to be honest, I didn't really know what it was until he showed it to me. So I'm going to start things off. I made a bundle for Porter. So let's take a look at this. Not that one, this one. Boop, boop, boop. Can y'all see that? Okay.
Got it.
Cool. So I ran Porter Create in this folder already to kick things off, and it gave me a Docker file template and a trusty README and a porter.yaml. And I started filling it in with CowsA because I'm horrible at typing and I didn't want you guys to judge me while I typed. And so what I did is, let's look at our Docker file first. I want to install this application. It's available with Debian, and that's what I'm working with here is Debian Stretch is my base Docker file. And I want to install this app called CowsA. All right, so I'm going to install it and I'm going to show you what it looks like first. And we're going to play with it just in the Docker container first. So I ran apt-get install CowsA. And then now CowsA doesn't get in your path by default. So ask the internet, and the internet says this is what you run, and it'll put it in your path. By default, CowsA is installed in like games CowsA. I'm going to dump it in my bin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this, and that's going to build my Docker file for me. Can we do a Porter build? That went really fast because I actually did it already. I cheated because I wanted this to go quickly. Okay, so I have a Docker image now called Porter CowsA at latest. So if I do a Docker run -it. Okay, so I'm going to do Porter CowsA, and I'm just going to go into Bash real quick so I can take a look around inside of my container, and I want to figure out how CowsA works. So let's do this. Boop. Okay, so I'm going to do CowsA. See what happens. Ah, okay, nothing. So let's give CowsA something to say. There we go. So CowsA will echo back whatever you give it, and it will say it. I like Porter. Okay, so that's how CowsA works. So we have a container that has CowsA installed inside of it. Now what I'd like to do is have a bundle that uses CowsA. So this whole porter.yaml was kind of templated out for me, and I've replaced it a little bit so it uses CowsA. So I've named my bundle CowsA, and it's an example bundle with cows. And you saw already that my Docker images were called Porter CowsA, which is pretty slick. And here I'm referencing my Docker file, so it'll use it when it makes the bundle. I'm going to skip over here a little bit here. So I've got a Mixin exec, and it lets me just run arbitrary commands against my shell. And so when I install my bundle, I want my cow to say hello world. So I'm going to use the exec Mixin. And this is just a description for whatever command I'm running. But I'm going to run the command CowsA and give it that argument hello world. So the equivalent of this is actually CowsA hello world. This is what's going to happen under the hood. Okay. And my bundle has a couple other commands in here. It has an upgrade command, so I can say CowsA world, hello world 2.0. And it also has a special command in here called say. And this is where I can tell my cow to say whatever it is I want. And I can pass a message into my bundle. and I can tell it to say whatever I want. I can give it a parameter to my bundle called message. And so here I'm going to go back up to the top. We kind of skip past this here. So my bundle takes a parameter called message. It's a type string. It defaults to good old moo. And it applies just to that custom action, say. All right, and so I can pass it through here and it'll say whatever it is I typed in there. So let's give that a shot. So first, let's just make sure I haven't run this before. I have it already on here. So I'm gonna do this, porter uninstall my CowsA. Okay. Kind of bleak, goodbye world. Poor little cow. Okay, so we're gonna do an install again. And it printed out hello world, because if we go back up here and look, that's what we told our cow to say when we install. So I'm gonna jump right to the fun one though. I want to invoke that custom action, say, all right? Now by default, the message was moo, right? So he's gonna say moo. But I could also do I love Porter. Boop. So this is what it looks like when you make a bundle and you just use the exec mixin. With the exec mixin, you can pretty much do whatever it is you need to do with Porter. So whenever there isn't a mixin that does something custom that you need to do, you can always fall back and just use exec. You can install the tool that you need to use, like CowsA. You're like, oh, I really need CowsA. Darn it, you don't have a CowsA mixin. That's fine. You can install it in the Docker file, like I just did, and then you can use the exec mixin, and you can just run it yourself right here. But maybe you'd like a more integrated experience. Maybe we'd like something that looked kind of like, say, the Helm mixin or the Terraform mixin that looked a little more slick. So let's kind of imagine, like, what could our CowsA, if we made a mixin just for CowsA, and I haven't figured out what this is gonna look like. This is like totally, I don't know, this could totally bomb. It could be fun though. What if I had a mixin that just said CowsA, like that? I want it to look like this. And then I want to be able to give it a message, maybe, and I wanted to just say hello world. And I want it to be like literally this streamlined. I don't want to have to do more than that. This would be the advantage of making my own CowsA mixin. And then the other cool advantage of making my own CowsA mixin is that I wouldn't have to make my own custom Docker file just to install CowsA. Mixins know how to install themselves into the bundle. So that'd be pretty slick. So that's kind of my motivation here for making my own custom mixin. CowsA is kind of silly, but like think about maybe something more exciting than that. Hey, Philip. I'm gonna take a minute to say hi. So when I'm making a custom mixin, I usually will start though with this step, figuring out how to make it work just with exec, figuring out how to install it into my Docker file, make sure I know how to call the commands and everything. And then, okay, go, all right, now I'm gonna make my mixin. So I have my motivation here. I have a really cute cat. So if I go to Porter, we have a repository called Porter Skeletor. If you remember He-Man, that's what Skeletor is from. And what it does is it helps you bootstrap a mixin. So what I can do is use this as a template. I'm going to click use this template. Boop. Should this be an official Deus Labs CowsA mixin? Jeremy, I need like an official thumbs up. Okay, 2 thumbs up. Okay. Don't let the boss see this. Okay. More cows. It's going to be public. So when you make a repository based off of a template like I did when I clicked that wonderful friendly button, what I get is a copy of the entire repository. So I get to like start, I don't get the whole history, right? It just has that like one commit. So I don't get the history of it, but I get all the files based off of it. So I don't need to like download it as a zip file and like start over from scratch and figure out what everything needs to go in there. And I get to start from the README here, which is pretty nice. And the README walks me through everything because I figured out how to make a mixin every single time. So I'm going to clone this. So let me clear this out. Git clone. So that's my new repo, Porter CowsA. Porter. You have to name things, by the way, Porter Dash. This is just like our naming convention so that we can keep all of our repos kind of tidy. And everyone's gonna have to forgive me. I'm a bad Microsoft employee. I use Goland. I don't use VS Code. I know Aaron's like shaking his head over there in the corner. Here we go. Okay, so this is what I'm starting with. And this is how everyone, I think, pretty much would make a mixin. Like you can start from scratch and try to figure it out. But even like me and Jeremy do it this way. We start from the skeleton and then we read the README and we remember every single time how to make a mixin. Okay, so step one was we created that new repository using the template. Cool. We cloned it, so we're good. So the next step is we need to rename it. So if we look right now in CMD and PKG, it's called Skeletor. It needed to be called something, right? So we need to rename these. So I could like rename it through here. I feel a little more comfortable doing the renames this way though. So I'm gonna do CMD Skeletor. I'm gonna move that to CMD. It's me CowsA. Move PKG Skeletor. PKG CowsA. Okay. And now we're gonna find, oh, look, we even got typos, great. We also need to rename PKG schema here. So let's try to find that. Let me be out of date. That looks totally fine. Okay. We'll just skip it. And then when it totally breaks later, we'll know what that instruction meant and we'll fix that instruction for the next person. Now we're going to look for this text that says that, and we're going to change it to use our stuff. Okay. So we don't want it to be Porter Skeletor. We want it to be Porter. I know that's super tiny. Is there a way to, can y'all read that? Or do you have to like zoom in? Oh man. I promise next time I will do better. I'm renaming it to CowsA here. Okay. Replace. Okay, now I'm gonna do a find and replace for Skeletor in the repository and replace it to CowsA. Okay. So now we're here. We're gonna run dep ensure. And if we did it right, it'll work. If we messed anything up, dep will be very mad at us and give us a lot of ugly errors. Cross your fingers. All right. So what Dep did there is it gave us a vendor directory. Oh wait, sorry, one sec. Oh, okay, cool. There was nothing horribly wrong. Dep gave us a vendor directory, and it filled in our go.pkg.log here with all of our dependencies, which is pretty good. And then in our toml file, we're just relying on Porter. We're relying on a pretty old version of Porter. But we're just gonna leave it alone for now. It'll be fine. Porter has come along a little bit, but it's not that old. Cool. Now what we're gonna try to do is we're just gonna run all of our different targets and make sure nothing blows up, okay? So we're gonna try to build it. We're gonna do a cross build, X build, which means we're gonna run it, a build for Mac, Linux, and Windows. And then we're gonna run our unit tests, okay? So I'm gonna copy and paste here so I don't mess that up. Go generate right here. Some of our templating, we use Packer from the Buffalo project to Go Buffalo. And it's just doing a little bit of templating at this point, injecting it into our binaries. Then we do a build. And then we run our unit tests. We don't have a lot of unit tests yet, but we have some. They passed, okay? And we're good. We have a Mixin. So the last thing we need to do is we're gonna install our Mixin into Porter so that we can see it. So we're gonna do a make install. It was super fast. So now if I run Porter Mixins list, CowsA. What this means now is we're ready to actually try to use our Mixin, right? But at the moment, we just have a skeleton Mixin. It doesn't do anything, right? So what we want to do is kind of take some of the logic from our bundle that we had written over here, from our Docker file template here, how to install CowsA, and we want to translate that into our Mixin. So this is the magic. This is how to install CowsA. So we're going to copy and paste that. And I'm going to bring it in here. Okay, so we have two different kind of pieces to a Mixin. We have CMD. This is like the wiring that just has, these are the commands that any Mixin supports. It supports build, install, uninstall, upgrade, and there's nothing terribly interesting in there. Unless we change the API between Porter and the Mixins, you pretty much don't touch CMD at all. So we'll just close that out. In PKG, this is where all the logic goes for your Mixins. And we have a couple different things. What we want to do is change build. Build is where Porter asks the Mixin to go tell me what you need installed inside the Docker file, so that when we run Porter build, we can inject them in and then build the invocation image for the bundle. And we kind of give you a prompt right here of what you may want to do. I'm just going to uncomment some things out here. And I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to follow absolutely no best practices whatsoever. I'm just going to do this. Okay. And I'm going to do that again for the second line. You can probably optimize stuff and try to reduce lines and use constants and all sorts of things, but we're not going to do that here. We're just going to make it really easy to read and understand. So when Porter calls our Mixin and says, what do you need when you're built? What do we need to put inside of the Docker file? We're going to say, we need CowsA installed, and we need CowsA linked into bin. That's it. So one thing I like to do is kind of make a bundle to try this out. So we have it installed somewhere. And as you go, you're going to want to have this little loop where I do a make, build, install because I just changed my Mixin. So I'm just gonna like put in my latest change. And now I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a bundle. I always go into temp. I don't know why. I guess I like my files to be randomly deleted whenever the operating system wants to. There we go. Okay. I'm going to make a bundle. Okay. And I'm going to have it use my new CowsA Mixin. And we're going to kind of do this to just test things out a little bit. So we're going to do, so we're going to call it like my CowsA. And my CowsA. Sounds good. And instead of using exec, I want to use the new CowsA Mixin we just created. So when we install it, I want to do CowsA. And I'm not quite sure what to put in here. So let's go back and look at what our Mixin is and what it looks like. And the place we'll find that is action. These install is called an action. Upgrade is an action. That's kind of how I knew that I wanted to look at action. So let's look at action, what I've got here. I have a generic action that applies to anything, and inside of it, it has steps. So if I go look at steps, each step has a CowsA on it, and inside each step, I can have a name, a description, arguments, flags, and outputs. So this is what the valid YAML is on my Mixin. So my CowsA will have, I mean, I can change this, but if I just want to like work with what's there, let's go back here. So I could have CowsA and I can have arguments. And let's say I want my cow to say hello. Okay. Well, let's look at a couple other things going on here. The command that it runs by default is CowsA. So a couple of our find and replace was actually doing a little bit of magic for us. Some of the magic was that it was hard-coded to run the command CowsA for us automatically. I'm just going to run porter build and see what happens. I don't even know what will happen, but who knows. Okay, so when we tried to build our Docker image, it failed. We're just running non-zero exit code. So when things like this happen, what we can do is we can look at the generated Docker file that came out. This is what it's trying to build. So if I go in here and look at my Docker file, this failed. So this was already built in there. This was just by default, this is what Porter does. And it did a bunch of things. And then it ran this for me. And it looks like what happened when I did my copy and pasting, I didn't get a line ending. That's what I messed up on. So if I go back into my Mixin, I want to make sure that when I'm printing out the lines for the Docker files, that I'm getting line endings. So I'm going to go back to build over here and take a look. Yep, and sure enough, I was using printf, right? Now, when I do print lines, these will print individually. So let's try this again. Now, I don't really have a better iteration loop, so every single time I touch my Mixin, what I'm going to do, now that I'm back in my Mixin, is I'm going to run make, build, install, and it's just going to bring it back onto my system for me so that I can use it in my little test bundle. Okay. So now I'm gonna try this again. I'm gonna do a porter build. Another way I could have done this is with unit tests. Sometimes when you're not quite familiar with what you should even be putting in the unit test, it helps to just test it directly against Porter and then get a feel for it and then write those unit tests. Porter. But, you know, it just depends what you're comfortable with. For me, sometimes I don't quite know what's going to make Porter fail. So, like, I may do this first, figure out what those lines should have been, and then put it in my unit test. So I make sure that as I add more things, I know what I should at least be asserting against. Cool. So now if I go in here and look at that Docker file, it was printing them on separate lines. So I have CowsA installed. And if I look at my Porter file, in theory, this should work. Gosh, I hope so. Let's try this. Let's do a Porter install and let's see if we can get our cow to print something. Yes. So we have a Mixin now called CowsA that's able to print stuff and do an install. And it looks like this right now. If we wanted to tweak how it looked, right? Maybe we didn't want it to say arguments. Maybe we wanted it to say something else. What we could do is we could go back into action and we could change what these are, right? If we didn't want to use arguments, we could rename these things to something else. We are getting a bit of magic. You know, you notice we didn't write any code and this just kind of happened. Our CowsA Mixin is based on the exec Mixin. So there's a little bit of interface. We are implementing an interface here. If we look at which one it is. Boop. We are implementing the executable step, which is something that if we check in here is something the exec builder understands. So if we rename some things, if we tweak some stuff, we just need to make sure that we're still implementing these interfaces, okay? And the way I'm making sure that I'm implementing interfaces is I have some lines right here. This is kind of just like a Go trick, actually, where you can declare a variable with absolutely no name. And then you can say the interface that you want to make sure that you're implementing, and then the name of the struct. So this is step here, okay? So say like I want to like break it. Maybe it's not called get arguments anymore. Let's change this. Okay. You notice how this suddenly got red squiggles on it? That'll give me like a warning immediately at compile time that I did something wrong and it's not implementing that interface anymore. And my CowsA plugin or Mixin is suddenly not going to get that magic implementation that's going to have everything kind of just work. And I'm going to have to suddenly start write code myself. So as long as I don't break these assertions here that I implement these interfaces, I should be good. So I could rename things like arguments to message. And as long as I keep these things fine and don't mess with them, I should be okay and be able to change stuff to message. Oh my gosh, I just said that, but you want me to try it and then have it not work? Let's do this. Okay. So anytime I change stuff, I need to just rebuild it and install it. Okay. I'm gonna rebuild my Mixin or rebuild my bundle here. Every time you change the Mixin, you want to rebuild your bundle so that the binary for your Mixin gets recopied into your bundle. Remember, bundles contain everything necessary to work with your bundle, and the Mixin binary is part of that. So when you change things like that, not just the files, but also the Mixin itself, you need to do a rebuild. So I'm going to do a quick Porter uninstall. Okay. Okay, do you think it'll work? I don't think it'll work, but we'll see. I've never tried changing this. It did. Okay, cool. Yeah. So this is how you'd go about making a custom Mixin. And you can add like a whole bunch of extra functionality. This is just printing to the console, which isn't terribly exciting. But what you could have it do is parsing files for you, talking to external APIs, you know, provisioning services, working specifically with your own company's, you know, domain logic, your on-premise weird things that you've built out. Could be anything really. But once you have that working and you're happy with it, what you would do is all you need to do is publish it to your releases. We don't have any right now, but when you start publishing releases in GitHub, you can attach the binaries there. And the skeleton makefile. So when we cloned Porter Skeletor, we not only got code, we also got a makefile, which has a whole bunch of logic in it. And one of the pieces of logic that's really useful is cross build all. And let's run that real quick. I'll show you what this does. It takes a little bit of time. And what it's going to do is that for every single operating system that's supported and every single architecture that's supported, it's going to build your binary, your Mixin binary for both the client and the runtime, which is whatever gets embedded inside the bundle. And then you're all set to then copy these three, Darwin, Linux, Windows. Right now it's just AMD 64 that we support, but eventually we'll have support for other things, up into your releases. So you'd make a release, you drag and drop those files up there, and then you'd be able to install your, yeah, let's try it. Should we see what happens? Okay, let's do this. Instead of me talking to it, we're going to do it. We're going to do a release of it and see what happens. Okay. Oh no. One sec, I never know my signing key. Oh, did I copy and paste way too much? Is that what happened? Yeah. There we go. All right, let's try that. Oh, okay, so much better. Okay, so we're gonna push all that out. And now I want to tag a release. Okay. So now I have a release, and what I want to do is attach some files to it. Oh. There we go. So see how it lets you attach binaries? so let's do one more cross build. See how they're now getting the version attached to them here? All of them are going to be stamped with v0.1.0. And I'm going to, like, you could automate this, and I do recommend that you do, but I gotta be honest, there's nothing wrong with a little drag and drop. Boop. So my hope is once this is done, you should be able to install your Mixin using Porter. So you'll have the same level of like first class citizen as a Mixin, just as the other Mixins do, just like a Helm Mixin, Terraform Mixin, Kubernetes Mixin, everything else. Well, let's see if that works. If it doesn't work, you can heckle me. It'll be fun. Okay. So let's look at Porter Mixin install command. And it's going to walk me through how to do this because I don't quite remember the exact command, but it gives me an example here. So when I go to install a Mixin, there's a couple different options. And normally you just type in install Helm or something like that, and you leave off all these other flags. But one of the flags is URL. And you can just say where to download your Mixin from. And the example gives you github.com, some org or project releases downloads. That's what we want to use. We just want to point it to our downloads. So let's do that. So I'm going to copy this from my CowsA. And I'm going to try this. Porter Mixin's install. It's going to be CowsA. And the URL is going to be this /downloads. Oh my gosh, cross my fingers. No! Oh, I didn't give it a version. That's the problem. We don't have a release called latest. We only have a release called v1.0. And by default, when you install a Mixin and you don't give it a version, it's going to try to install a version called latest. So we're going to give it v0.1.0 instead. Okay. So this is where I try to download it from. Releases downloads. That looks so good. Let's copy that and see why it doesn't match. That's where it thinks it should get it from. What does ours look like? Ours looks like, you know what? I gave it an S. Okay. One typo, one off. We can fix that. Releases download. Okay. There we go. So I was able to make a Mixin, base it off Porter Skeletor, use CowsA, make a bundle off of it and see it working. We saw the cow print stuff out. And now I'm able to ask other people to install it and use it with this Porter command. So if I do Porter Mixin's list now, they're going to see CowsA installed. And it was not installed because I did, you know, make, build, install, and things like that. It's because they installed it using this command. So are there any questions? I know it's kind of like a lot to absorb, but
no questions. Maybe a quick clarification on the custom action. Remember when we were executing the say action?
Yeah.
What actions are custom and what are not custom?
Sure. So default actions is install, upgrade, and uninstall. If you make anything else at this top level, like you make something called say or list, status, dry run, doesn't matter. You can define pretty much anything else. You can call it whatever you want. Then that would be called a custom action. Yeah, well, Philip, that's a great question. Why doesn't it list the version and the author? It's because I didn't put that in there. So if we go here and we look at for my CowsA Mixin version.go, is it version.go? I'm going to click on everything until I find it. Oh. Okay, I know why. So there's the skeleton's out of date. That's why. Let me pull up the code for another Mixin for you real quick. So in Porter, there's a couple Mixins already defined. Let me pull up another Mixin that does report stuff back. So like the Kubernetes Mixin. Let's go look at their version.go. They support JSON output and plain text, okay? And it prints out a whole bunch of extra information. Oh, wait, I'm in CMD. Let me go into package real quick. Sorry about that. Here we go. So it has some structured information that it prints out when it's in JSON mode. And it prints out the version, the commit, and the author. And it handles that -- output JSON. So let's look at that real quick. So if I do bin Mixin's CowsA version here, okay. The one I used, if I do output JSON, I'm not getting any JSON back, right? I do this against the Kubernetes Mixin. See how I get all this structured information back? If a Mixin handles output JSON, then you get that extra information printed out when you do Porter Mixin's list. So I need to update Skeletor. Really nice catch there. So that it has people implement JSON output for version. So what we could do if we wanted to handle this is we could update our Mixin to do what, say, the Kubernetes Mixin is doing and handle the JSON output and basically copy and paste this implementation right here. And we would get that as well. And it would print that out for us for CowsA, and it wouldn't just be blank then. It was a new feature, and I forgot to do it for Skeletor. Cool. Well, that's all I've got. I really appreciate everyone coming out to the Porter office hours. And if you have suggestions, we have a, if you go to porter.sh/community, so right next to the Zoom link, we have these agenda notes. I totally ripped this off from Aaron's stuff from his project. Anyone can edit this. So if you wanted to add ideas for the next office hours next month, feel free to just start typing. You just click the edit button and add suggestions for what you'd like to see. So if there's maybe like a deep dive on how something works in Porter or how something works in CNAB, we want to talk about maybe designing one of the new features in Porter, doesn't matter, could be anything. Suggest it, and that's what we'll talk about. Yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Carolyn. That's great.
Bye.
That's awesome. Thanks, Carolyn.